Welcome back. Okay, so we're continuing on with our tutorial on turn-based combat. In the last one, we were looking at some just an introduction as to different types of turn-based that you might find in some RPG games. And the one that I selected was to look at the initiative combat system. So let's jump into it and let's find a nice blank spot to work on. And the first thing we're going to do in this tutorial, this is going to be the planning tutorial. Excuse me, sorry about that. The final tutorial will be on the actual coding of it. You really want to have a good plan before you start coding. First thing we're going to need is we're going to have some sort of manager that's going to manage your battle, which we can just call our hold on, is this okay? Yeah, let's do that again. Right, so our battle manager, and the job of the battle manager is basically to find out well, it will start the battle, it will order the players. This will be our initiative system, and it will I guess end the battle, and this will be either a win or lose scenario. Either you have killed all the enemies, or all the enemies have killed your entire party, one or the other. So the battle manager will sort out those things, and the next manager we're going to need is every player. So that means your party members and the monsters are all going to need to have their own managers. So let's just put a, because there's going to be differences in how choices are made, we're going to have two managers. One will be a, let's call it a party member manager. And then let's do an enemy manager. Okay. So our party member manager and our enemy manager are going to be what's controlling the actual actions during the entire fight. Let's go back to our battle manager. Okay, so the things we're going to need in the battle manager. We have to use a state machine for this. Our battle is going to be in different states, and so we're going to have a start state. We're going to have the picking of the players. We're going to need to set up a whole bunch of different scripts for this. Let's look at the battle as it evolves from the very beginning to the end. The first thing we want to do is we want to let's just check we're going to check our initiative first, and this is going to be storing our players in a list. So let's just randomly do something. So we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do this. So we're going to be coming back to the checking of the initiative, but basically you're just going to see a tile for each player that is going to be played. So we can display this on the screen, and let's say our screen will only display, what's that, 1 2 3 4 5 6. So there will be displayed 6, but our list might actually try to sort out the next, let's say 24. So let's make it some multiples. So it will already know 24 moves in advance as to who's playing. This can get altered, however. So the first step is we just check an initiative, and then we will pick the first player. So let's say pick first player, and I want to do this as I'm gonna have to create some scriptable objects, because I want to have some weapons. I want to have spells, so in case you got a wizard in there, and these will have a use time. How long does it take to use that item? For instance, you get a standard sword or whatever, and it might have a use time of 0. In other words, it's an immediate use for that item. If you use a really high level spell, it might actually take a little while before that spell could actually activate. So in doing that, I want that we're going to have our icons being displayed. So let's say, let's do a shading on this, and let's say clear means choice. So we select our initiative, and we are going to have a clear icon saying which character is going to be making their choices and at what point will they be making their choices. Then someone might make a choice, and what's going to come after that is going to be the action. Oh, I have a new subscriber. Welcome. So on that action, we're going to have, let's make it red or something. And this is going to mean action. When the actual action takes place. So for instance, that really high level spell, let's say I make the choice up here in slot 1, and that guy doesn't actually take effect until all the way down here. So we're going to be adding to the list and removing from the list. We're going to be reordering that list throughout the entire battle. At first, we check our initiative, and everyone gets a slot to make their choices. That's when it's going to start to change itself up. So we pick the first player, and then we're still looking at our battle manager. The battle manager, once the player's picked, just goes into wait mode. That's when the player now has his own. Did I put enough space here? Yeah. So the party member or the enemy manager, they will now have their own time to do their own. Shoot, words are failing me right now. State machine. So each of them will have their own state machine. Most likely they'll be in wait mode from the very beginning, because they're waiting for their turn to come up. When the battle manager finds them in their list, they're in the initiative list, then it's going to tell that particular party member to move out of wait mode, and if it's time for them to make a choice, then we might have within our state machine our choose mode. And once they make a choice, we will then fire back to the battle manager as to when that choice actually activates. So our choice, our choose, right, our choice is going to affect the initiative list. we are going to be in that list again, and whenever we hit one of the red icons, which means that will be an action. So the second that the battle manager, so after the choice is made, we update the initiative list. Our first icon is actually cleared out because they've already made a choice. So we now pick first player again, because it's going to be the next person in the list and they're going to be pushed to the top of the list. So we pick the first player again, and then once again we go into wait mode. When we pick that player, that's when we're checking, are they making a choice, are they making an action? If they're making an action, that's when we then go to our action area, and that's when we will carry out action. And depending on how the outcome of this happens, we might also affect the initiative again. And how does this affect the initiative? Well, let's say we killed an enemy. We have to remove them from the initiative list. What if we cast a spell that slows the enemy down? Then we have to, we're going to recalculate its position within the initiative list. So there's quite a few things that will happen once we carry out these actions. The enemy manager is basically going to have the exact same thing as the party manager, just that it is automated. And we could easily get into going down the path of AI and having a whole bunch of ways that the enemy can think to say, if my health is down past a certain amount of level, I'm going to more likely choose a healing spell or drink a healing potion. If I have just taken a huge hit, maybe I might retaliate with a counterattack. So there's a bunch of different things the enemy might think to do, and that all has to be automated. I'm not going to get into that into this tutorial. That could be a tutorial for another day. I'm just going to use a random draw. So I'm just going to roll a random number and it will pick a random person to attack, or it will pick and it'll pick a random action to do. Cast a spell, swing a sword, whatever. Okay. Zoom out a bit. Alright, so we've got our battle manager, which is going to be showing our the order in which these things are picked. We are first picking a player, then we're going into wait mode, but I guess before we pick a player we should just check for a win, lose scenario. So that should be the first thing we check before we go and pick anybody. If it's going to check through the entire list and it's going to say, are there any enemies in this list? And if it says there's no enemies in the list, then I win. It's going to look through the list and say, are there any players in the list? If there's no players in the list, then I lose. So rather than picking someone, it's going to check to see whether you've won or lost. So getting that, this first part of the battle manager, we're going to break our tutorial into the two parts of programming the battle manager. The party manager, I'm going to do that in its own tutorial, because I can make those things of making a choice or making an action. I could set those up as just very basic things. It's the battle manager that's the important one to get into. So this is where we're going. We're going to have a UI with some displayed characters to show the initiative list. We are going to have in the background a list of probably 24 different actions. So 24 initiative choices are going to be pre-set up, and we'll be always adding to the end of that list. The way I think I'm going to do this, in Dungeons and Dragons, you normally roll a d20 and add any modifiers to that d20. We're going to do a similar thing. Everybody will roll random, so everyone gets a random roll plus modifiers, and that will put them into the list. So let's say we get a 10, we get a 50, and a 55, 60, 69. So we just get a bunch of these numbers, and these are what each person has rolled and their position in the list. So let's say this is 3 creatures and 2 players. So I'll put a box around the players. And so these are the 2 players, and we've got our 3 creatures. And that's the order in the list that they're going to get. We just keep adding to the list. So the numbers are going to get larger and larger and larger as we go. But it's always the lowest number will be top of the list. And that way, if we need to make some rules. So what happens if I get, let's put a 3rd player in, or yes, a 3rd player, and the 3rd player had rolled a 55. So here we have a 55. What happens? We have to hard code this into our game. I could either say pick randomly between the 2 of them and select who goes first, or I could just say, in a case where a creature or anybody, okay, yeah, this is going to get a little more complex. So if it's a creature I'm going up against, the player always plays first. If it's 2 players going against each other, then we can do it random. So that's why I said we need to sit down, plan this out first. I need to know what kind of roads I'm going down. If I don't think these things out first, I'm just going to be sitting looking at some code and probably writing a whole bunch of spaghetti code. Which, don't worry, I'm going to end up probably writing spaghetti code in the end anyhow. But, so this is the method we're going to go. We're going to say that if it comes down to a creature versus a player, then the player always goes first. If it is player versus player, then it will be random. And once again, if it's creature versus creature, then random. Okay. All right, so what are we going to be putting into this list? I'm going to make a class. So let's say it's going to be a class called Initiative Action. And in that class, we could probably put things like position. We are going to put, and that's going to be an int. We are going to put the who. So who is it? It's going to be which player is it or which enemy is it. I want to also put a type, which that will be either choose or action. That way in our list, and I think that's about it for now. That way our list will know when we look in the list and see an initiative action in that list, we know what position it's in, we know who's doing it, and we also know whether this is going to be a the person making a choice or the person doing an action. So I think we've got pretty much all that I needed to plan out for this to get started. That means I'm going to cut this one off, and I haven't been going too long, but I'm going to cut this one off because I want to have the coding one as a totally separate tutorial. And like I said, the coding one we've broken down into me first setting up the battle manager, and then we can get to the party member manager, which would kind of affect also the enemies manager. And finally, at the end, we'll do some UI stuff. I'm gonna have a very basic UI just to show the party members, but we're gonna have a more complex UI system at the end. That will be it for now, and when I come back, I will start the coding for the battle manager.